Okay. Awesome. Perfect. Alrighty. So, how we're gonna start today is by first learning a little bit more about all of you. So, I want to hear about what you were doing before you decided to learn about UX UI design, how long it typically took you to complete, um, or I guess to get a job. So, how long it took you to get a job after learning about UX and UI design. And then any of the participants watching, if you'll want to ask us any questions in the comments, we're more than happy to answer those for you. So whoever wants to start first, go ahead and then get the answers rolling.
I was
So
gonna say
Franklin. Yeah.
Angelica start us off, so it's ladies first, you know.
Oh, what a gentleman! All right, I'll start off. So my exodus into UX UI was a bit of a weird one. I was um, a psych researcher in grad school, and I decided I didn't want to do that anymore. Just left class one day. I was like, no, I'm done with this. And I went back into the restaurant industry, which had been working anyway to pay for grad school. Um, and I came across a restaurant consulting firm where I started working as a consultant, doing a lot of, consultancy on finances and training and stuff. And I used to doodle a lot. I still do actually. And my boss, who is the major stakeholder in the company, was like, "Hey, you're artsy, right? So why don't you design our in-house app, right? Here's a developer, two of them. They're out in India. You got this, kid. Go for it." And so my task was to create an in-house app that would allow 400 some odd companies to scan and upload invoices and receipts, upload it to our database, and then that database would parse the receipts, and create a whole filing system and give them back analytics based on these receipts, on a regular basis. So I had no idea what I was doing, and I started looking into it, and lo and behold, there is an industry for this. I fell in love immediately. I went through the whole process figuring out how to do this, researching and competitive analyses, interviewing department heads, stakeholders, clients, sketching, wireframing. I got into Adobe to start wireframing, working with the developers. We launched an MVP to the 400 users. I interviewed them, uh, did some reiterations and post MVP stuff, and I completely stopped working on everything else I was supposed to, which kind of sucked because I was getting paid based off commission. So didn't work out for me all that well getting paid, but I fell in love with the process. And so that was the day I was like, I can't do anything but this anymore. So I told my boss, I was like, I'm not doing, like, this is all I'm doing from now on. So either fire me or or help me find a job. and and he sent me to work with his cousin. But I realized that as much as I had figured out in the process, I really needed to go learn what this was. I started studying with Block. I think it was Block at the time. I think it's Thinkful now. Avocademy didn't exist at the time yet, otherwise. And that got cut off because COVID happened and family stuff. But I kept working as a designer and associate design stuff with a few companies. And then I met Maka, um, and she put me in the Career Jumpstart program immediately after, just kind of launched the ability to start working a little more quickly with firms and get a career jumpstart, if you will. So from there, I started working with a production studio, MX, and now I moved to Denver to work for a methane emissions tracking company here in Denver. And I just got promoted to senior position here. So, yay!
Congrats.
Yeah, congrats.
Awesome.
So it took me, I think, I don't know, maybe like 3 months after a career jumpstart to like get a more serious role in the industry. Before that, I'd been dabbling in a few roles with design work. But that really was a lot thanks to just coincidence and um, my boss being like, "Hey, you like to doodle? You can figure this out." So thank you, thank you, Natasha.
Awesome. What about you, Franklin?
Yeah, so I came from a theater background actually, and kind of human services. So I was in grad school getting my MFA in acting and graduated out in the pandemic when there really wasn't much of an industry. So decided to pivot and didn't want to go back to human services, but was interested in kind of seeing what I could do. Was interested in technology, found UX design, but kind of didn't know what I wanted to do. If I wanted to do like another boot camp like Springboard, took a course with Nielsen Norman Group, loved it, and then found Avocademy and was like, okay, this feels like a good fit for me. So I started it in November of 2021, finished it January, like the first week of January in 2022, did Career Jumpstart in about 2 months, started the job search in March, and then got my first UX research gig in 3 weeks. So I worked for a prop tech startup based out of New York for about 8 or 9 months. They had some layoffs end of last year, and then I transitioned into Indeed, and I've been there now since January.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nice.
That's really, really cool. What about you, Manny? How
Oh
is
wow.
your background?
Yeah. My story is really it's interesting. So all my life, most of my life, really, I've been in the nonprofit sector. So it was just kind of surreal when I got this job since it's a nonprofit hospital. But yeah, most of my life I've been in a nonprofit sector. I was doing some prevention work. I did some prevention work. And then I did case management work as well up here in Cincinnati. And back in 20, I want to say back in 2018 is when I actually started doing design work, and I was doing web design for a nonprofit. My best friend's nonprofit actually, so she brought me on as her web designer. So I was doing some some front end web designing for her, not knowing that I was gonna be ending up in UX UI design. So that kind of really kind of pushed me towards design work and tech. So after my my case management gig, I was kind of leaning towards going back to like school. So I was thinking like med school or even doing IT or getting my MPH. So initially I thought about it, and I spoke to some friends in the field, some family, close family members in the field, and I made my decision. I was gonna go the IT route. So I think I shared this with you guys too on one of our channels. So I wanted to go the IT route. So I started doing some research on, basically some IT courses and some masters of cybersecurity programs out there. And I stumbled on this one college, and I said before, like I'll forever thank this college for introducing me to UX UI design. Yeah, I stumbled on this college, and they had UX UI design as part of the program that they were offering. So I was like, what is UX UI design? So I just clicked on it, went down a rabbit hole of what UX UI design was. I started self teaching myself, so I taught myself a bit of Figma using Skillshare. I started watching some YouTube videos on UX UI design, and I noticed that there was a trend. So most of the people that were in the industry were either went to like a boot camp, because I thought about that Google UX design certificate. So I thought about doing that, but then again, it's almost like if you even if you get a cert, you still need that industry and you need that that client work and that client experience. So I started doing some research on the best boot camps out there. Avocademy was definitely not on the list at the time when I was looking it up. Yeah, I'm not even gonna lie. It wasn't on the list of the best boot camps out there. And most of these boot camps were expensive. Oh my God, they were like in the 18K and like some were asking for like 20K, and I was like, oh man. So I started, just kind of just went down the list of what's the least expensive boot camps out there. So I did some more research. I found Avocademy through research, and I reached out to I think it was on her review was on, I want to say, Course Report. Her name was why am I blanking on her name? Bianca. So Bianca Black, that was her name. So I don't know if she's on this call, but Bianca, thank you. But yeah, I reached out to her. She had finished the course and she had left a review on this. So I reached out to her on LinkedIn. I saw that she was in the field as a UX designer. So I reached out to her on LinkedIn, connected to her on LinkedIn. She hopped on a call with me just to share her experience with Avocademy, and I think I signed up for Career Jumpstart that same day when I got off the call with her. And yeah, the rest is history. I did Career Jumpstart I did Foundations in July of last year. And then I finished, went ahead and signed up for CJ, finished CJ in, I want to say, February. And it took me about 2.5 months to land this job at Cincinnati Children. So definitely super, super grateful for Avocademy.
That's awesome. Well, I love to hear all of y'all's story, and I love the fact that it took y'all less than a year to just dive into UX and UI design. So, to give a little explanation to those that are watching about what Foundations is and CJ is, because those sound like very technical names. So, for Foundations, that is our educational course. Foundations currently is a maximum of 16 weeks long. It's part time. You get to dedicate time whenever you have available, as long as you're dedicating those 10 hours a week. You'll learn UX research, UX design, UI design, build your first project, portfolio website. You get help with your resume and receive unlimited mentorship with senior designers one on one on Zoom. And you also get mentorship on Slack where we have a community of student mentors and alumni, which is really cool. You get to interact with people, post your activities, and get feedback from mentors on there as well. And then CJ is our step two program that's actually called Career Jumpstart. CJ is like the nickname. And that is essentially where we help you complete your portfolio with real world experience. You get a chance to work for small businesses like startups, nonprofits, and you get to collaborate in teams with other students, with mentors, sometimes developers, depending on the project that you choose. And then we help you navigate through the job search. So we'll create a plan with you, offer direct referrals to hiring managers, recruiters. We'll do interview prep, salary negotiations, and now we offer a job guarantee, which is super exciting. The end-to-end process from completing foundations until you get a job takes about 8 to 12 months to fully dive into the field. And if you have more specific questions about foundations or Career Jumpstart and you want to chat with me about it, Sadi will be dropping a link in the comments where y'all can book a Zoom call directly with me or anyone from our team. And with that being said, I'll start asking y'all some questions and start with the interview process. So we have this one right here as the first one, which is, did y'all have any experience prior to the boot camp? I know y'all mentioned a little bit of experience with design or just being thrown in the design field, kind of. So if y'all want to touch a little bit on that, that would be amazing.
I'll start. So I did mention with the first job that I had, how my boss was like, "Hey, just design this app for us," and he so nonchalantly was like, "Hey, you got this, you draw." And that was where I kind of started looking up like how do you design an application, a mobile app at that, and that kind of led me down this rabbit hole of like looking up like what does this process look like, what do I have to do, and that's where I really kind of discovered what UX UI really is. And that was the only really real experience that I had in terms of like being exposed to some Google searches that would be like, hey, this is the design process, this is UX UI, and like I didn't really have anything to connect what I was doing to any like really background information aside from the articles that I was reading or some like YouTube videos. This is back in like 2018, 2019, 2018, 2019-ish. And so even then, like a lot of the boot camps that exist now weren't as prevalent. Avocademy wasn't really like there yet. It didn't even exist yet.
No.
And so like, you know, I was really in the middle of trying to figure out how to go forward with the process of building or designing, not building, designing this app. I'm like actively in real time also researching what the steps are to do this. And that kind of made me also fall in love with the process. And so when I left that job to go to another one, I went there as technically they gave us really fancy titles at that place because it was a really small company, and the owner was just like Oprahing the titles, like what do you want to call yourself, you know? So I think my official title on the business card was like associate creative director.
Wow.
And I worked with one designer, like she worked for me technically, so I oversaw the design process. But and so that was the exposure I had to design world. But I used that time to be like, all right, so I really need to fundamentally understand the principles of what this is and why it functions the way it does. Because it's not just like, oh, you have to ideate and then do this and then do that. It's like, why does it work the way it does? What philosophy is there behind it? What psychology is there behind it? Why does this process work the way it does? And I didn't feel confident enough in just like reading scattered Google documents and watching like a YouTube video here and there. There's nothing wrong with that necessarily. It's just, I know for my learning style, I really wanted to have that like solidification and education. It wasn't even the certificate so much as like, I really wanted to learn it and have somebody there to answer questions and somebody who's reputable and knows what they're talking about. And that's why I really went to further that education a little bit more.
Awesome.
Back to you, please. Have a hand up.
Franklin, if you want to go.
Yeah, kind of similar boat. I had done a little bit of self-study on my own. I'd actually tried to do the Google Coursera course and just did not enjoy that at all, to be perfectly honest, because it was a self-study and a kind of self-paced. But on top of it, the feedback that you got was from other current students. So unless you had people who were actively engaged in learning, the feedback could be gibberish because they just needed it to move forward as well. Like you needed to provide feedback. So I was looking for feedback from professionals, from mentors, getting that focused one-on-one attention. So that's also what drew me to Avocademy. And as Carla had mentioned, part of CJ or Career Jumpstart, you get to work on real world projects, and that can really set you apart in the interview process because you have that experience of working with a team, working on different types of projects, whether generative or evaluative research. So I felt like that really helped me kind of set myself apart. And yeah, just having that feedback from the mentors where you can post in the channel or schedule those one-on-ones was a godsend, both during foundations for me to learn, but then also during Career Jumpstart. You can do that like in the job search process, and that helps you prepare for the interviews that you then go out on.
Oh, for sure. What about you, Manny?
Yeah, for me, interestingly enough, I had a bit of that front end experience. Not so much like UX design processes and like UX research. I didn't have none of that experience, but with my nonprofit that I worked for, I was doing that front end web design using CMS or content management system, so like Squarespace. So I was using Squarespace, learning a bit about front end, the look and feel. My founder usually will come up with, her pain points now that I know what it's called, pain points. But so usually, yeah, she usually like throw something out like, hey, like this is not working right, or we need this to function this way, we need this to look this way. I learned a whole lot about typography and the color science and color theory and all of that, doing that front end stuff. So it all started to make sense and kind of fall into the right place when I stumbled on UX UI design. That's where my love really grew. And kind of what Franklin and Angela had mentioned too was that client work that I was missing. And you know, with any certificates, really with any jobs, usually you need that infield experience, and you need that, you know, infield exposure to be able to speak on when it comes to interviews, and to be able to say that, oh hey, like by the way, like I have this experience, like I have hands-on experience, like I've actually done this work. So you need to prove that in interviews. So that was, you know, that was major with Avocademy and CJ, and even the foundations course. So yeah.
Yeah, and also I feel like learning to leverage your background and use your background and, like not totally forget about it and now be like, oh, I'm a UX designer. It's like, no, I used to be a waitress, and I
Hmm.
used to do problem solving and communicate with people, empathize with my customers. And from there, I learned so much that I can translate it into UX and UI design. So it's like having that variety of backgrounds that can teach you many different soft skills that you can utilize within UX and UI design is also super helpful. You don't need to have the typical trajectory of going to college and having a background in design or tech or being introduced to it before you dive into foundations. It's how you leverage that background and you carry yourself as a designer going into those interviews. I feel like makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
um, yeah, sorry, I just thought that I would add my little touch in there as well.
Perfect.
um,
Well said.
okay,
But it's
so
totally true though.
yeah, I mean, I see it all the time, to be honest. Like, I have these calls with so many different people interested. I showcase the question, but I'll ask it later again. Um, but I talk to so many different people with complete different backgrounds, and they all have one thing in common, and it's that fear to switch careers, right? We've all gone through it. We've all felt that anxiety, the fear of like the unknown in a way, and how you can translate your background into something new. And I feel like when people hear that they can use that background and not totally forget about it, it gives you some type of motivation and like courage to keep pushing forward. At least that's how I felt when I was diving into this and being an advisor and not being used to being an advisor and helping people. Like, I had to find sort of the skills that I learned from school or from my previous roles to like feel, I don't know, this is gonna get way too deep, but like feel like I know what I'm doing. You know what I
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
mean? But yeah, anyways, so I'll showcase this question again. And it's, how long did it take you to land a job once you had enough projects in your portfolio? So I'm guessing after you complete your portfolio in Career Jumpstart, how long did it take you only in the job search, if you remember?
Yeah, mine was 3 weeks, maybe four max. I was
Wow.
I was pretty lucky. I was interviewing for my first kind of gig last spring, so that was, I think, when there was just a, a like a surplus, what felt like it. But I know some people, like in my project, some got jobs in less than that time, like a week in some instances I've seen posted in the Share Your Wins channel on Slack, and then some it's more like 3 to 4 to 5 months. But for me, it was, I think, 3 to 4 weeks.
That's insane. That's really good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very, very fortunate.
Yeah. So
And
for
even
those
Shiva,
that,
you go first.
oh
Sorry
yeah,
for
you
asking.
guys can. Yeah, I was just gonna mention before anything that typically it takes your students about 2 to 6 months to get a job after completing their portfolio. So it does take some time, and everybody's different. Everybody's journey is totally different. Like Franklin said, some people take 2 weeks to get jobs, others take 6 months to get jobs after completing their portfolio. Um, but yeah, whoever wants to go next can go next.
Man, you go.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, me, it took me 2.5 months. I actually had a countdown on my phone, and I think it said 74 days or 72 days for when I received the offer. So about 2.5 months.
That's so
Yeah, I was
good.
counting down hard. Or counting up, I should say.
And Angela, I think you said it took you 3 months, right?
Give or
After.
take, something like that. I was also being not I wasn't being super picky, but I was also looking for jobs specifically in that, like, I was living in Fort Lauderdale, Florida at the time, so I was looking for jobs in that area. Um, there weren't that many office jobs, especially like coming out of it was like what 2021 ish, when I
Mm,
had finished CJ. And so Fort Lauderdale, Florida didn't have like as many jobs. I didn't even have that many applications out, which was cool. I had like 20 some odd applications because I was still working full time at the time. And like that's another interesting thing I did want to bring out there. I had friends who had finished CJ with me who had sent out like hundreds of applications. I had ones who sent out like a couple dozen applications or a dozen applications, and it was just like a timing thing. What job they had just submitted to, the timing of the application process for the company you had managed to submit to, and it ebbs and flows, and there's no like um, right science to it. It's like you say, it'll take anywhere from 2 to 6 months, give or take, or a couple of weeks or a couple of days, or it's
mm.
just a matter of like when your resume is hitting that recruiter stack and if it's the right time for them to be looking at it, kind of thing.
Mhm.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely different for everybody. I saw this question too. About like I saw heads shaking regarding the Google cert. Haha. Is that not a great route to take as well? So from my perspective, and I'll go first, I don't think that it's a wrong route to take, right? Like I feel like you could be self-taught, you could go the Google cert route, you could go Avocademy, Design Lab, you name it. There's so many different resources and tools out there that you can take to help you dive into the field. Personally, and I'll try to be as unbiased as possible, but personally, I would want to see like mentorship and getting the guidance of somebody that knows what route to take and that tells me if I'm applying something correctly or not, for me to be more secure in my designs and also to dive into like the Career Jumpstart where you get real client projects. I think it's not that the Google course is bad, is the additional tools that Avocademy provides that makes it not better, but that it guarantees you a job. Whereas the Google course doesn't guarantee you a job, it's just education, it's resources. And I've taken so many courses in Coursera before. Amazing tool, love it, not shading on it. Just it's different. It depends on what you want to use it for. But if
That
y'all
was
want to
very
comment on
diplomatic.
that,
That was such a diplomatic answer, Carla.
I have my
um,
PR team right here. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm going to add on to that. The Google cert is essentially a glorified Udemy or Coursera course. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it, and getting education or furthering education or clarifying education in any format, whether it's YouTube, Coursera, Udemy, Google, whatever, uh, Nielsen Norman Group, whatever. There's those are always good, and like I'm in the middle of a Nielsen Norman Group course. I think I'm taking it next Saturday. I'm taking an MIT X Pro course on VR AR design. Like those are always good. Um, but if it's like you're taking the Google course for the certificate with the expectation that it's going to be like, I'm going to put this on my resume and it'll be enough to enter the job market and it'll be enough to provide me with sufficient information to confidently enter the job market. Personally, I don't think it'll be enough. I don't think a lot of recruiters take it seriously on its own. I think it's a great addition to a deck of information and to a deck of knowledge share. On its own, it does not stand well on its own. It's like taking a bunch of Udemy courses to gain information, but it's not going to amount to um, something that you can say, hey, I went to this thing, I took classes and had to provide um, documentation that I've been learning something and somebody was there to check my work and provide feedback, and I had to go through a rigorous process to demonstrate my knowledge in order to gain this certification. It's just I went through X amount of hours of video and completed X amount of hours of video, and now I've gotten a certificate to prove that I've completed X amount of hours of video. Um, Again, there's nothing wrong with having done that because you've learned something from it, but on its own, it's not it's not a reputable certificate on its own. The on its own is very important.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with both of you ladies. It's I feel like with the Google search, I mean, like, don't get me wrong, like it's doable. Because I've seen people do it, and they said they've landed a job with it. But for me, I think, and for everyone on here, I think it's all subjective. Because for me, I needed some sort of structure. I needed some sort of experience. Because in the beginning, I was like, when I was teaching myself, taking Skillshare courses on Figma and UX design, I was like, oh yeah, I could definitely do this. Like, it's no problem. Like, I could have just thrown on like the Google search on my LinkedIn or whatever, and just all on my resume, and just be like, oh yeah, I've done this work, I've done the training, so I can definitely get a job. But it's really that client work and being able to speak into what you did client wise, and even to the extent of having experience working with developers or engineers or stakeholders or whomever, so that really goes a long way for you, and it just leverages and it puts you at the top of that candidacy pool, or that list of interviewees. So it was definitely essential for me to just seek that structure and that direction. So
Yeah, and I also think people learn in different ways too. Everybody's different. I'm not saying that like this is the only route that you can take, right? Like there's so many different routes that you can go
mhm.
into. Some people want more structure. Some people they're okay with being almost self-taught, just watching videos and then doing the independent work of like, let me see industry standard designs, let me check out what they're doing now, maybe let me start building my portfolio, but let me hire a mentor to help me out. So it depends on the person. I do think that all of these like courses are great. I've taken them before. I love Skillshare. Skillshare, amazing tool as well to watch videos and just learn new things all the time. It's just a matter of knowing yourself, your best way to learn, and like what path you want to take and how fast you want it to. Like all of these little things, like they come into play to choose that boot camp for you, um, in my opinion. But yeah, okay. So next question. Okay, so how is the mentors? As I heard that every mentor is different and have different opinions. So design is very subjective, and you're gonna have many mentors with different opinions. But if y'all want to talk about your experience with that, feel free.
Hey man, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie. It's at some points during my work, I feel like I was stressing myself. I was being stressed just because of the feedback that I was receiving on some of my projects and my work. But like you said, Carla, it's very subjective. I think the biggest advice with that is, and what helped me out the most was just being open minded. Because it was a new field for me, so I was just trying to take in all I can as far as what I was being taught. Now obviously you also got to operate with common sense as well. You don't have to. You don't have to take everyone's advice, and you don't have to take everyone's opinion to heart. You just take it with a grain of salt, and just like I said, just come in there with an open mind. If they give you a feedback, just go ahead and you know do the best you can to implement the changes and the feedback that they give you. But I mean, I'm not gonna lie, like I said, it can get stressful at times, but eventually you learn your way to maneuver around, and you learn how to navigate it, and you get better as a designer and as a student. So that's I think that's the major thing to look out for too.
So I'm a mentor.
Ooh.
So I do a lot of mentorship, especially on the portfolios, and I often find myself overcorrecting a lot, and I will qualify that even while I'm like providing feedback in the rubrics, that a lot of the recommendations that I'm making are like, this is coming from a place of like, these are suggestions. You don't have to take every single suggestion when it comes to like things like, here's a qualification for like, this is to make you sound better for a recruiter, and this is like, you have to correct this because this is actually incorrect. So there's some qualifications, and I think that from what I've seen, I left CJ, a few years ago now, and just the growth in the mentorship process, in the CJ process, and the way that like CJ operates overall, night and day from when I was in the CJ program, and for the better. And not saying that my experience is bad. I absolutely loved my experience, and I mean, I got an amazing job out of it. I truly did love the way that it operated then, but there's a lot more process to it now. There's a lot more process to it now, but there's checks and balances, and like people checking your work along the way, and then double checking it. Like one person's going to check it, and somebody else is going to check it to make sure that the iterations that you're putting forward are correct. And the ultimate goal of every single person who's working with you and looking at the things that you're producing is to make sure that you're understanding the things you're working on, and B is to get you a job. So it's like, for your own knowledge and for your own betterment as a designer, and to make sure that the product that you're putting out is the best version of itself, so that when you do put out that portfolio, and I'm speaking mostly from portfolio because that's what I work on the most, so that when you do put out that portfolio, if there's somebody else who has a similar looking portfolio or whatever, you're the one who's going to be like, star of the show. And a recruiter's going to look at it and be like, damn, this person knows what they're talking about, sort of thing. And that's the whole point of CJ, is like, you've gotten to work with these clients. You can not theoretically, you can actually say that you are a true designer because you have been working with clients, working on teams, going through the process in a real life manner, and not just on a case study based on a theoretical problem statement that's going to be, always living in a theoretical space, but is going to be put to real life cases. And so now we're just going in there and being like, hey, please fix this, please fix this, please fix this, please fix this. And sometimes I can tell it can get annoying because I could see myself getting annoyed with myself. But we just want you to do good and put out a good product, and then get a job really fast and make a lot of money and live your best life.
Period.
Yeah.
I love that. What about you, Franklin? Do you have any opinions in regards to that?
I do. So I will say I was also a mentor for foundations for a few months back in last year. And what I will say is the program has grown a lot since even I took it in fall of 2021. So I think that there has been a lot more consistency and standardization in how mentors approach giving feedback and kind of what everyone is looking for. I know that was being rolled out in greater detail kind of as I was making my way out of mentorship. But I think everything that everyone else has said is completely valid and solid kind of points to bring up. I would also add that to that point of like design is subjective, we also have like strengths and skill sets that we come to the design process with. So me, I'm a researcher. I'm trained in design from Foundations and Avocademy. But like my job is research. So I look at, during when I was a mentor, I would maybe look at research plans differently than maybe someone who wasn't strictly a UX researcher would. Or I would provide feedback noticing that some alignment was off on like a wireframe, and someone would comment, well, so-and-so didn't catch this. And I was like, yeah, they might be better at this one principle that I would miss, but I caught this. So I'm telling you to maybe address this because of like these foundational principles of design. Here you go. So it's a teaching moment. I will say as a student, I got frustrated myself because I'd be like, why do I keep getting these notes? But I was able to notice those kind of adjustments needed in alignment as a mentor because someone pointed out to me when I was in the foundations as a student. So the notes that you get, if you can incorporate them, you can then use them when you're actually on the job working. So you're building those skills as you're going.
Yeah. I think overall mentorship is always super helpful because of that, because you hear other perspectives. And when I was doing my activities, sometimes I would catch myself being like, but I thought I was doing it perfectly. What do you mean there's something wrong? Don't tell me that there's something wrong. But like you said, you learn from that. You learn how to take feedback, which in the work field, you're gonna hear a lot of feedback. So once you learn how to take it, when you dive into the work field, it won't be as harsh. At least from my opinion, I don't know. Okay, so this question right here, I'll answer it super fast. So basically, they want me to describe a little bit about the Avocademy's mentorship throughout the program. So you'll get two forms of mentorship. You have one-on-one Zoom calls, usually with senior designers, people that have experience in the field. And you also have mentorship on Slack. On Slack, you post your activities and you get feedback from mentors. You can book as many Zoom calls as you want for the one-on-one Zoom calls. And yeah, those are the two forms of mentorship. We also have student success that you can reach out to, AP at Avocademy that you can reach out to. So those are like the main ones that you'll be utilizing. Let me see. Okay, so this is another one that I'll get to answer fast. What percentage of Avocademy participants who get a UX UI design job without the Career Jumpstart program? Okay, so when you complete foundations, you have one project in your portfolio. Industry standard portfolios require at least 3 projects in your portfolio. So, not saying that you can't do it, you can definitely do it, but there is a lot of independent work that you have to do, find small businesses to work for, build your portfolio, and then navigate through the job search. So percentage wise, we cannot keep track of that. We can only keep track of the completion rates for Career Jumpstart because we see when they get a job and we hear it from the student. So I hope that was helpful. Let me see. Was a new design challenge added to Career Jumpstart in the past 6 months? I don't remember when we added the design challenge, but it was pretty recent. I don't think any of y'all took the design challenge, did you?
Well,
No? Yeah. It was fairly recent. It's not too bad if you go through foundations. If you go through foundations, we prep you really well for the design challenge as well as when you turn in your portfolio for you to get accepted into Career Jumpstart. My biggest advice for that would be pay attention. Use the mentorship is very useful. Watch the videos, read the articles, do the work, put in the effort, and you'll get into Career Jumpstart. I know it's easier said than done, but it's worth it. Okay. These are a lot of questions about like Avocademy in general, so I'll try to go through them as fast as possible so we can get into more of them. Is Avocademy a bootcamp? What would you rate the program? Avocademy is technically a bootcamp, but it's separated into 2 parts. So you have a course, like the educational course, and then the bootcamp aspect of it that you complete your portfolio and you get a job. If y'all want to say really quickly what you would rate the program, because I'll be biased. So if y'all want to do it, go for it. Whoever wants
20 out
to.
of 10. Listen, I love. Listen, I have a weak spot in my heart for this company in general. The ownership and the leadership of this company have done something completely innovative that doesn't exist anywhere else. If you go to any other boot camp, whether it costs $1,000 or $20,000, they're going to do the same thing where they feed you through a boot camp, and you're going to learn a lot the same way you learn a lot in Avocademy, and they're going to, graduate you with 1 to 2 case studies, which are, as I mentioned earlier, theoretical case studies that are, an app or a website or whatever that they have theoretically created a problem statement for, and you're going to theoretically come up with a solution and design work for, and it's all fake, because that's what these things are. And there's a bunch of them, and recruiters know how to spot them. And I've talked to the recruiter at my company, and she gets really frustrated when she starts seeing these portfolios that are nothing but fake bootcamp assignments, because it is frustrating for them to see it, for a various amount of reasons. But what Avocademy has done is, aside from providing that education to show you how to learn and do the things that they're doing, they then take the students who want to join Career Jumpstart and then allow you to work in groups with a mentor, and then put you through like the actual design process as if you're in a job, right? You have product or project managers, and you're working with team leads, and you're working in teams, go through that process. And this is all terminology that you end up using as if you're in a real job. And you go through the whole process with an actual client. You're working on a real project, not a real product, a real project for a real company who's going to use this one day and launch their own product for a startup or a nonprofit. You've done something for somebody. And then you get to put this on your resume. And then when you go interview with somebody in like a month or 3 weeks or 2.5 months or 3 months, you could be like, yeah, so I worked on a contract with X, Y, and Z clients, and I've done this, this, and this, and these are the deliverables I made for them. And this is all the experience that I have. And you did it through a boot camp, but like, they don't even have to know that realistically. Like, and then you get a job within 3 months or 3 weeks, instead of, getting pushed down at the bottom of the list of applicants because you have 2 case studies and they're both fake. And that is why I love Avocademy. And also, I'm still really active in the Slack channels because everybody's awesome and I love to hear. So I'm just a little bit biased. No big deal.
I think we all kind of are a little bit, but
Just a little bit.
Franklin, what would you rate Avocademy out
I
of 10?
mean, out of 10, I mean, I don't want to be biased because like I'm the researcher. I'm supposed to be unbiased. But yeah, I think that I would rate it as close to a 10 as possible. I think like 9 out of 10, 9.5, only because what Avocademy is now, it has grown so much since when I completed it, and CJ as well. I'm not saying that like my experience was bad in any way, but I think that I like log back into the portal every once in a while to be like, what's changed? And like new materials been added, new activities, new exercises. So I think that like the reason I'd be like 9.5 is because there's always room for improvement, but I'm seeing how it's improving and growing. Because like you said, we didn't have the design challenge when I was going through CJ and working on one of my projects. Not everybody was like necessarily up to par, in my opinion, that I was working with. And I think the design challenge has really helped like elevate everybody to like know how to do consistent work and know how to know that terminology and know how to create components, all these things that then really help create cohesive teams. So 9.5 out of 10, because you can always improve.
You can always improve. That's true. We take feedback really well too.
I mean, yeah. Oh, you got. I'm sorry. Just cut up another good responses. You know what? I will have to agree with Franklin. It's there's always room for growth, always room for improvement. So a solid 9.5 out of 10. I will not be surprised though if after CJ, any of the graduates get a job or land a position at one of the fan companies, because I mean Avocademy really sets you up for success, and CJ really sets you up for success. Uh, you know, I, Especially through my interviews, because my interviews there were 40 applicants, 11 interviewees, and they ended up picking me just because of how good the portfolio was looking and how well I did in the interviews. And it was all thanks to having that mentorship feedback and making sure that I was prepping with the mentorship feedback and just knowing my stuff. So it's a solid 9.5 out of 10. there's always room for improvement, especially in the job search. I felt like that's where it lacked the most support. But I mean, I'll be honest. Most of the when it comes to the job search phase, it's really all up to you. And what, because in you can't have a mentorship with you can't have a mentor with you in the interview room. So it's really up to you to kind of get your stuff together and know what you're talking about and know understand the reason why you're there and the reason why you're interviewing, and prepping for the interview. So that there's definitely room for growth over there. But yeah, that's really all.
Yeah. The interview is really scary. And I feel like it's scary for every role, but especially if you're diving into a new field, like it's going to be intimidating as it is. So I'm going to have two final questions. The rest of the questions that I see in the chat, please book a Zoom call with me and I'll be more than happy to dive more into detail on those because they're very precise to like pricing, career jumpstart foundations, and things like that. So I want to hear two things from all of you. The first one is how's the work life balance within the role and do you get unlimited, um, I'm guessing PTO and equity? Well, not unlimited equity. You can't get unlimited
Okay.
equity, but do you get equity? I guess. I don't know. Do any of you want to answer?
I'll go. Currently, my work life balance is a little shaky. That's just because I took on a little bit too much on my plate. I'm taking 2 courses. I work in a startup, and we're launching 3 out of the 5 products that I work on right now. But that's like the current, like, month and a half long, couple of sprints that we're going through. Otherwise, my work life balance has been great. Coming out of the service industry for most of my life, all through college, grad school, everything. I don't remember the last time I had, a weekend or like a holiday off. So like, I'm off every single weekend. I have unlimited PTO with a minimum of 3 weeks that I have to take, otherwise they'll kick me out of here. And so on top of like the minimum 3 weeks, if I, tomorrow, if I'm like, hey, by the way, I'm taking a mental health day, they'd be like, all right, bye. My company also gives me a $250 monthly stipend to spend on like wellness, whether that's, therapist, yoga, going to the gym. I bought leggings and told them it was for the gym. It wasn't. I just they were really comfy leggings. I think my friend bought a ping pong paddle for the ping pong table in the office because he got really competitive with another coworker, and he charged to the company and they paid for it. They paid for my MIT course. It was $3,000, and I didn't want to pay for it, so they paid for it for me. They gave me vested options. I have 225,000 options over 4 years vested. So every year I get a fourth of those options. And I'll be vested for my first year in September. So I'm like halfway, I'm a little over halfway there. They pay 99% of my health insurance. So every month I pay $7 for health insurance and I get a premium. I love this company. Not every company is going to be that great. But you apply for a bunch of companies. A lot of companies offer similar benefits. There's a lot of companies that offer full PTO that pay maybe not 99% benefits of your health insurance, but pay a lot of your health insurance, that offer monthly stipends, that take care of their employees. I put in a lot of work here because I really care about the things that we're doing. But they see that, and they gave me a raise within like 3.5 months of me being here. They're like, hey, here's an extra 10 grand. So there's a lot of companies that at the end of the day, you're always an employee. A company is going to take care of their bottom line first, but they do take care of their employees as well, as long as they can. Startups aren't for everybody, but I like startup life. It's a little chaotic, a little weird, and that's what I like. So that's where I am. That's yeah.
Awesome. And what about y'all? Do y'all want to mention a little bit about what you get from your companies, work-life balance?
Yeah, work-life balance is fantastic, honestly. As a researcher, I get to plan my own studies with my team, but I'm not working crazy hours if I don't need to. I'm currently on contract at Indeed, so I can speak to that. I get benefits through my contractor. At my startup that I was at prior to that, I did get equity, unlimited PTO. How Indeed works for their full-time employees is unlimited PTO, equity, and then they do company-wide U days once a month where you don't have to work if you don't want to. So it's one Friday or Monday a month off, and I, as a contractor, get to take part in that. So I can work like if I want a kind of a quiet day with no Slack messages, or I can just take a free day to myself. So it's really, really great.
Yeah, I just started, so it's been what? This is my second week. So work life balance. I can't really speak a whole lot into that, but I remember funny thing when I got the offer, they sent me like a 29 page full of benefits package that they offer. I'm like, yeah, I'm not gonna read all of this. but a few of the major ones that they do offer, which you don't see at a lot of companies, is a pension. They offer pension, which is wonderful. And then just a plethora of benefits. I mean, like I said, it was a 29 page full. I'm not gonna read. I wasn't gonna read all of that, but so far, I mean, it's starting at this hospital. I'm sort of, well, on this team that I'm on. I'm the sole UX UI designer. We just hired another UX designer, but I'm the sole UX UI designer. So they're depending on me a lot to come up with sort of our processes and establishing design systems, and just introducing UX UI design to the whole team. So it's a lot of work. It's a lot of responsibility, but that's a challenge that I never step away from. So it's room for improvement. It's room for growth. Room to get promoted. So and that's what I was looking for. So I'm up for it. So far so good. It's been fun. It's been interesting meeting with a bunch of high end providers and high people in high places and smart people. So it's been fun. It's been fun.
Awesome. No, I love to hear all of that from y'all, that there is a little bit of work-life balance there and that there's a lot of flexibility, especially like having days for your mental health and all of that. That is awesome. And the final question that we're gonna dive into, because it's already 6. So the final question is, if you could give any advice to anybody looking to dive into the field of UX and UI design, what would it be?
Honestly, explore it. Whether that's taking the leap and like doing foundations, or taking the phone call, or watching YouTube videos, or buying a book, like just do it. The worst is you find out it's not for you, but you learn like a new skill potentially. And if it is for you and you love it, then you're able to really learn a lot of amazing skills that can transfer industries. Because I was in a fintech startup before this. Now I'm at Indeed. We'll probably jump to another industry or problem space after that. And the skills that I learned are incredibly applicable and transferable. So I would say do it.
What
I mean,
about
I was just say, just like Franklin said too, just go for it. I mean, you never know till you try. Just give it a shot if you can. If you are able to, if you have the the funds and the resources to just explore it, just go ahead and do it. I mean, just shoot for the stars. You never know what will happen. Because I spoke to a friend of mine too. I don't know if he's on. And I actually met him in Vegas last sometime a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, I met him in person. Yeah, I had a
Manny, what
conference.
happens in
Funny,
Vegas,
yeah,
dude?
I had a conference there. My job paid for it, and I had a conference, and I met him in person, and we were having a conversation about the program and how we ended up where we are, and we're like, we never thought that we will be in the position that we are at now. And he got flown to the Virgin Islands for a job interview. So which was pretty cool, which was pretty neat. So I'm like, if you ever get this job, like I'm coming to visit you like right away. Like book me a ticket. I'll be in the Virgin Islands. So just go for it. Just the sky's the limit with this field. Just explore and try it out. If it's for you, yeah. If it's not for you, just go a different route.
I love that.
I like that. I say if you're already curious about it, if you're looking into it already, that means there's something there. You didn't stumble onto it out of nowhere. You're already kind of curious. You might as well just go and dig into it a little bit more, right? I have a few friends who are looking into it now. One of my friends just signed up for foundations, I think last week, which was very exciting. Very proud of him. Um, and you don't have to just jump right into a boot camp and dedicate the money into it, but at least do the research of, look up some YouTube videos, Coursera or Skillshare or Udemy or something, and figure out if that's something you're actually interested in. But if you are, then I recommend Avocademy to everybody. It is a hill I'll die on. It is especially the CJ program is the better program to get into than any other bootcamp you can do, and that is solely because of the real life client thing. And I will fight anybody who says that any other program is better, because there's nothing that's going to prepare you for real world work or getting hired than that. I will fight anybody who says something different. I stand by what I said. It is a hill I'll die on. But to find out if that's what you're interested in, do some research, read about it. YouTube, do free resources. YouTube has everything under the sun right now. Download Figma, that's free too. Play around with it a little bit, see if that's something that you could see yourself doing. And then if that is something that you like, then dive face first, not head first, face first. Just have fun with it.
Oh my God, thank you all so much for sharing those beautiful advices with everybody. So Sadi went ahead and dropped a coupon code down below. It's save 200 for $200 off, available until Sunday, April 30th for foundations. I know that we didn't get to answer all of the questions, so please either book a Zoom call with me. Again, it's starred in the chat, so book a Zoom call with me and I'd be more than happy to cover all of those for you. Or you can also email info@avocademy.com and we'll be answering through there as well. Thank you all for joining. Angela, Franklin, Manny, thank you for joining me today. It was lovely getting to know all of you, and thank you for answering all of the questions. I hope all of you have a beautiful rest of your day, evening, afternoon, wherever you're located. Have a good one.
Guys, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you.